Hello and welcome back to Hudson Auto Films. Today, you guessed it, we are back working on the Nova, and well, this is a very exciting episode. The goal of today's episode is simple. We need to get the chassis finished and back down on its wheels, but of course, it's just a floating chassis right now. It's got no suspension, so we need to deal with all of that. And well, we've decided to go for something rather special, air suspension. So hopefully by the end of this one, the Nova will be back down on its wheels and the suspension will be bouncing around like we're in California. So, lots of work to do, let's do it.
Yep, you heard that right. The Nova is getting fully adaptable air suspension, possibly making it the first ever Nova on air. We'll talk more about this choice later in the episode, but before we can even dare put such nice parts onto the chassis, we need to clean it up. The underside was obviously completely painted after the floors were repaired, but the top is still a bit of a mix match of surface rust and new panels, which just won't do. Not to mention that gearbox is far too crusty to ever put our nice shiny new painted engine near it. So to kick things off, it is only right to clean this chassis up, get it painted, get it nice and smart so it matches everything else, then we can offer up our very fancy new suspension. After a good scrub down with some engine degreaser, which in this case was basically like an oven cleaner sort of substance, and of course some brake cleaner, water and a stiff brush, the gearbox was looking a lot better. It was certainly free of debris and old paint. Wasn't particularly fancy yet, but we can get that a bit nicer later on. Next, we need to really get rid of all of the surface rust on the chassis and get that painted.
Before we get back to rebuilding the suspension and chassis, let me show you something else that also has some pretty crazy mechanics.
Today's episode was made possible by War Thunder, a massive free-to-play multiplayer military action game where players from all over the world in tanks, planes, helicopters and naval ships all battle together in real time. It's got everything from classic World War II icons to modern combat vehicles, night vision, drones, the craziest range of vehicles you have ever seen. And the level of detail is insane. You can see every rivet, feel every environment, and thanks to War Thunder's physics, every hit actually matters. Take out a track and that tank's done. Clip a wing and that jet's not flying so well. And the brand new Tuskforsk update adds the BM Oplok T tank, Buck M3 missile system, Hornet fighters, and completely overhauled maps like Poland and Eastern Europe.
If you love engines and explosions, not talking about our Alfa Romeo engine, and of course realistic mechanics, then you will love War Thunder.
Download it for free on PC, PlayStation or Xbox using the link in the description. New players and those who haven't played War Thunder in 6 months or more will receive 100,000 Silver Lions, a special Eagle of Valor decorator and more bonuses. And if you want the same chaos on the go, check out War Thunder Mobile, free on iOS and Android. Hit the link below and jump into the game today. So out comes a tool that I feel I've spent rather too much time with over the last couple of months, the wire wheel. After about an hour, the front 2/3 of the chassis were pretty rust-free and all of the nice new surfaces had a good key to them, so it was ready for paint. So next it was time to address the rear suspension, which is particularly crusty, but I also want to give the gearbox a nice polish up. I'm not sure how well this will come out, but it still just needs a bit more love. By this point my body was vibrating, but the chassis was looking a whole lot better. All the surface rust had been knocked back and was looking about ready for some hammerite. And as you can see, a lot of debris did come off the chassis, so this was well worth doing. So now it's time for a quick cleanup and then it's paint time. So the chassis is now free of rust dust, and all of that sort of crust. Even the gearbox came up pretty well. I didn't give it too much time, but it certainly looks a whole lot better and will be a lot more fitting to go on our nice shiny new engine. So it's hammerite time. My approach is simple. Lay it on thick so the rust don't stick. I just made that up. I'm not really sure it even makes sense, but it rhymes and sort of sounds about right. Anyway, let the painting begin. So the chassis was finally painted and protected. It looked a whole lot better and hopefully would be free of rust for many years to come. But before I show you the complete result, we need to address the rest of the suspension parts that are going on, including the front beam and all of the supporting parts, which are equally as crusty. So let's grind those down, get them painted, and then it's air suspension time. Oh, hello, it's me. Just a very quick one to say, if you are enjoying this episode, please do consider subscribing. The stats say only about 20% of you who watch these episodes are actually subscribed, and well, subscribers help make episodes like this possible. So if you are enjoying, please do consider it. Anyway, back to work. Quick disclaimer here, these are not actually the hubs I'm going to be using. The air kit comes with special hubs that allow for extra low, but one thing I haven't mentioned is there is a sort of urgency to get the Nova chassis rolling again, as it is being transported somewhere very exciting that you guys will find out about soon. So I'm just quickly painting these hubs so we can get them on and get the car moving. But yeah, that's why I'm being rather relaxed about my paint discipline. Well, look at that. After a long day of grinding and painting, the chassis and all the other suspension parts are looking fantastic. Even though the chassis has been solid for the last month or so, it sort of looked a bit sorry for itself, being a mixture of new parts and parts covered in surface rust. But now it looks so clean, so strong, so protected, and just the perfect place to house our Alpha race engine. But of course, before that, it's air suspension time. So admittedly, this is a new experience for me. New parts, boxed, not covered in rust, so it's going to be an interesting journey. Lunch.
Okay, well, this is very exciting. Within these boxes is a full air suspension setup for the Nova. I didn't expect this to be happening, but things have evolved, and I've never dealt with air suspension, but it seems perfect for the Nova. The combination of performance and technology. Anyway, this whole setup is by Limebug. They were very kind and gave me a very heavy discount. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do this, but their products are really amazing, top tier. I'd highly recommend, so do check them out. I've linked them down below. But yeah, let's dive into this and see what we've got. This is a full swap, so this gets rid of all of the old, so we can just have something very special for this Nova. It's like Christmas. What? Shiny. Ooh, I know what this is. What? Bloody hell. Jeez. Ooh. Whoa. I never thought in a million years I'd have a car with air suspension, except for maybe like a clapped out old Land Rover or something, but cool air suspension, yeah? You know, like for coolness and performance, not just like, yeah, anyway. Tangent. What is in here? Bloody hell. Another big box, and there's so many more to go. Woo! Thank you, Dom, for the... Hi, Charlie. Thank you so much for choosing to collaborate with us. Ah, it's a really nice message of encouragement. Thank you, Limebug. Thank you, Dom. Woo! Bloody hell. Jesus. What? Look at that. That is a piece of meat. Air tank. Well, this is very exciting. This is high-tech stuff. Let's do it.
Right, so let's lay everything out and just have a better look at what we're working with.
Okay, so here we have the array of incredibly fancy parts from Limebug. Now, I've never had parts that look this nice. As you know, we typically use sort of very old crusty parts and try and bring them back to life. So this is new territory, but a quick run through of what we've got here. Obviously, a lot of it's quite self-explanatory. These big airbags are for the rear, and those shiny gold ones are for the front. Then sort of over here, we've got all of the management system to make it go up and down and all that fun stuff. Then a lot of this stuff is to replace the original suspension and allow for optimum low. Obviously, if we put all of this air system on with standard suspension parts, it would probably work in lots of cases, but you wouldn't be able to get all the way to the floor, which obviously isn't practical, but in some applications, you know, if you're at a show or you want it to look really cool, well, you've got that option. Then over here, we've just got a bunch of service parts, which Limebug also sell. They don't just do the crazy stuff, they do everything for your air-cooled cars. And well, obviously this big bad boy is our air tank, and then we've got the compressor. In theory, this should be a very simple install, in theory, but I don't want to jinx it. So I think enough waffling, and the next thing is just to read the instructions. That's always a good start, and start getting things on. I think kicking things off with the back might be sensible, but we shall see.
So kicking things off, we are connecting our two big rear airbags and their sort of mounts. They bolt together and create sort of a big arch that goes over the gearbox. And then that arch is bolted to a variety of places on the chassis where the original suspension bolted in. And with it connected together, it was time to lower it into place. Already this was looking really cool. It is just quite a dramatic looking piece of kit, and thankfully the chassis is nicely painted, or it would have looked rather out of place. And with it loosely mounted on, it is now time to bolt on the variety of supporting sections. Much of it was now bolted up and looking good, so now it is time to focus on a key area. So this is originally where the torsion bars would have been mounted, but this setup allows you to completely do away with the torsion bars. One thing you do maintain, however, is the spring plate. Obviously in this case it is a different spring plate which is designed for the air suspension setup, as the suspension geometry is completely different and all of that, but the principle is the same. It slots in and obviously sort of pivots on that rubber. Everything was bolting up nicely, but this next shot reminded me to say, if you're wondering why the drums are on, the drums aren't staying, which I'm very excited to say, but as I mentioned earlier, we need to get this car rolling and moved, so that's why those crusty drums are still sitting there. With everything tightened up, it was all looking excellent. This was by far the easiest part of the build so far. The setup just bolted together and gave us no issues at all, up until around now. So this little bolt-on beam essentially gives some triangulation and just additional support. It goes to the back portion of the chassis, just near where the gearbox end plate goes on. Now in principle, the beam comes down and then that back portion of the chassis is sandwiched between the top mount and a bottom mount. Very simple, but of course we have modified the chassis slightly to have extra strength. We've got that X section that runs across it, so our back portion of the chassis is a lot thicker. So if you had a normal chassis, this would be fine, but we need to figure out a way to just slightly extend that sandwiching effect. But before we did any modification, it seemed sensible to put the gearbox backplate, which has the gearbox mounts on, which are new because the original ones were completely perished. Then once we have that on, we know everything that is going on, and then we can modify the bracket accordingly. But of course, in trying to put the backplate on, we realised that that also needed modification in order to get around our X section. Now, we didn't know what we had run into with the X section, and these are two very small issues to get around, but yeah, we need to modify that, and then obviously we can modify the bracket for the suspension setup. Then, we should be good to go. And with the relief cut on each side, this backplate should now fit nicely around the X section. And with the backplate fitted and the gearbox nicely mounted, we could now finally address the additional support for the suspension. Our solution is simple. We're just going to pass much longer bolts through so we can have a bigger sandwich essentially, but as you can see we've got a little right angle on this bracket, so we need to cut a relief so that can sit inside it. After cutting the initial relief, we now realise it actually needs to be further towards the back of the chassis, but conveniently that initial relief will allow us to pass the bolt through, so we'd have had to have done this anyway, even though it was an accident. And just like that, it's fitting pretty well. Now with that sorted, the next thing to do was make the holes in the brackets bigger so we could pass some longer and slightly more heavy duty bolts through. Now this is one of those moments where a proper workbench would be nice rather than this old broken rubbish one, but one might be incoming.
You alright?
Yeah, just pull my finger into the
Oh, Jesus.
clamp.
And with all the high-tech modifications done, we could now pass our long bolts through and have this properly mounted up.
One.
And just like that, the rear air suspension install was done. And bloody hell, look at that. It's such a cool setup, I'm so excited. And other than the mishap, which was sort of our doing by adding the X section, it was such an easy install, which was a nice change for this build. But there is no rest for the wicked. We now need to get the whole front suspension setup installed, which of course means kicking things off with getting our freshly painted front beam on. Now, as I've mentioned a couple of times in this video, we just need to get the car mobile today. So these bolts are not the final bolts that will be holding this front beam on. We're actually going to be tapping all the way through for additional strength. But for now, this will allow us to get the front suspension on, get everything fitted up and see how everything fits, because this is the area that might need a bit more modification to handle the air.
How did it work before?
Some of the bullet did before.
But how did these...
So with the front beam on, the first thing to do was remove the torsion leaves. Now again, the front setup allows for all of the torsion stuff to be removed. It's a very prehistoric setup, so this will be again a nice upgrade.
Jeez. It's a little bit tight. Yeah, so they are. Oh yeah. Probably use it.
Lovely.
And with the leaves removed, we could now replace them with these nice brand new through rods.
Oh, yeah.
Very
Nice.
And with the through rods nicely nipped into position, it was time to focus on the front suspension arms. And in my typical overzealous nature, I didn't actually stop to think that these needed to be aligned with the end of the spline. So we need to take them off again and knock the end plates out, and then we could see exactly where they were fitting on the through rods.
So why do you have to remove the end caps because these stick out further than the originals, I think. So let's have a look. We can just have a look without.
And with a bang, the end cap was removed.
End cap removed.
We can now fit them back on and see exactly where they lined up.
It's about the same.
And as Steve said, it's the same.
No.
We worked our way around, but basically everything aligned itself perfectly. So it was a good precaution taking the end caps off, just to double check that everything was where it needed to be, but everything fell into its natural place just fine. And with that all out of the way, the next thing to do was offer up the hubs. Once they're on, we would then have everything in place to position the front air suspension.
There's 17. That's in use. I'll get the 19. Right, now we have to remove.
Hub installed, air time. And after a little bit of fiddling, we were in. But we quickly noticed that the airbags were sitting very tight against the top arms. And as mentioned earlier, we would be putting new hubs on, so we thought initially maybe it's because we have got the standard hubs on, but after comparing them we realised that wasn't the issue. After jacking the suspension up and trying a few different configurations, we were still running into issues. At certain heights we had clearance, but the whole time it was all pretty tight. So we gave Linebug a call, who said, actually in some cases you need to remove a little bit out of the suspension mounting point. This allows the bag to sit at a different angle and gives you the clearance you need. So while Steve drilled that out, I went ahead and I fitted the other side up, which again, as you can imagine, ran into exactly the same issues. But with our mounting hole now having a bit more travel, let's get it bolted up and see if it's made a difference.
Cock.
Yep.
Even with the modification, we were still running into the same issue. Now, the other suggestion was to shave some material out of the arm, but that's something we really want to avoid. That is a key suspension component and we don't really want to reduce its integrity at all. But as you can see, when the suspension is compressed, we have clearance, and for sort of normal ride height, we do have clearance. It's just when the suspension is at its max height, then we run into issues, and we don't really want to have that issue because constant rubbing on the bag will just eventually degrade it. Of course, there is a chance our dropped hubs might help with this issue, but from what we could measure, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. We had options, but the thing with suspension geometry is it's really hard to figure these things out when the car is not on its wheels and when it's under no load. So we thought the next natural thing would be to get it back on its wheels, which we needed to do anyway, and just see how it reacted. So with the very crusty drums going back on hopefully for the last time, you heard that right, the Nova is going to be back on its wheels for the first time in probably about 6 weeks, since it's been completely made solid. The last time it was on its wheels, it was a crusty toothpick, and now it's a strong chassis with air suspension and a crazy turbo engine ready for it. Things have certainly come a long way in just a few weeks. Okay, so the moment of truth is here. But not only do we have the new suspension to take into consideration, remember this has had a floor drop in keeping with its original floor drop, but Yeah, this will be the first time seeing the Nova in its revised new form. Any guesses? How low would she go?
Dunk. Yeah, that's sort of low.
Fuck me.
It's not touching the ground.
No.
We could do this and actually have it planted on the ground.
Hey, fuck me. Look at it there.
What's it done? Let's give itself some clearance, even at the lowest setting.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Look here.
It just cleared itself.
It just works.
Hey, fuck me.
Big way. Oh, yes. Woo!
As you can probably tell, this is a very exciting moment. Now, this is the lowest the car will be. This is the suspension completely at its ground. So I want to have a quick measure just in case the engine sump was on the ground.
Oh, we've got plenty of room.
What's it like?
Look, so centre 22, our sump is here.
10
centimetres.
That's plenty.
Yeah, plenty.
So that is good news. Even at the absolute lowest setting, which wouldn't be very practical to drive at, the sump still had 10 centimetres from the ground. Now, we wouldn't be able to properly plumb this all in until the body is on, because we need to position the tank, we need to know where everything is going. It would just be pointless to do it now because, yeah, we're going to clearly clash with things that we aren't aware of. But that doesn't mean we can't test out the suspension. So with a few simple lines plugged in and using a car pump, we're going to test this thing out. This was also important because, as previously mentioned, the suspension clearance is fine at certain heights, but now it was on the floor, we wanted to see what it would do if it was boosted. But to kick things off, let's try the back. So I believe off the top of my head the back suspension can take about 90 psi. We were only at 60, and obviously this method of pumping it up is a lot slower, but you get the idea. It's pretty cool.
Should we put the fronts on and see if we can pump the fronts and the backs at the same time?
Yeah.
And now with the fronts also plumbed in, let's see how they react and how our clearance is.
In the air. On the air.
No, it's excellent.
Whoa! Whoa! Look how fast that is. Well, the front wins the race. Jesus.
How's clearance?
That's touching here.
Touching now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shall I keep going?
Keep going, yeah. I might be worried about the pressure the front can take
Yeah.
as they rose so quickly.
Yeah, there's probably...
There's no weight on the front though, is there?
Yeah, true.
No weight at all. That's why we can lift it with one hand.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's alright, keep going. Yeah, clearance is a big problem.
Huh?
That clearance is a big problem now. Those bags are literally squashed against those arms.
Oh, made you jump. But if you couldn't hear, the front clearance is still poor. Again, it is fine when it's slammed to the ground, but when we are at proper height, it's not great. So we are going to have to get creative.
Okay, so this is a huge amount of progress. All the suspension is on, but we haven't really got a fixed plan on how to resolve this issue. And I suppose there's three things we can do, and it might be a combination of all of them, but it's a little bit tricky because obviously the car is unloaded. With that said, there's not much weight on the front anyway, so maybe this is quite an accurate representation of the weight on the front. It won't be much more. So this is really, yeah, thinking about it, this is the situation we're in. So what are the options of resolving it? Well, of course, we could take this further back and alter it that way, and that might give us a little bit. But as we've found, we have gone back a couple of millimeters, maybe a little bit more, and hasn't made a huge difference. Then, of course, we could be cutting away from this top arm, which is where everything is going wrong. But that is a suspension component and a significant one. So yes, I don't think it's going to fail, but it's still a little bit less than ideal. You don't want to be cutting that away if we can help it. The other thing which seems potentially the best option right now, we were discussing it, is to modify this link bracket at the top. If we can modify it so it can sit deeper in a slightly different angle on the front beam, sort of in here, because unfortunately the shape of it means you can only get it so far. If we can get it to sit deeper, then that will give us the clearance we need. So I think realistically, that is the first option. See where that gets us, and then obviously we can modify this a bit further if we need a tiny bit more room. Worst case scenario, we know a quick fix. But we don't have to worry about that right now. The car is on its wheels, and in full slams mode, it has plenty of clearance. And even when it's at sort of a sensible ride height, it has tiny bits of clearance. It's just really when things are properly pumped up that we have an issue. But yeah, we don't want to have those issues anyway. But for the sake of moving this to a different location, which I'm very excited to tell you all about, but I can't right now, this is perfect. So all of these final modifications we'll deal with a little bit later down the line. Probably when the body's on, you still have plenty of access to the fronts. I'm glad we got the rears on because that's a little bit more tricky with the body on. But yeah, we'll deal with that when there's a bit more weight on the chassis and yeah, when we can start to plumb everything in. But plan of action today, I want to clear everything up as it sort of looks like a complete tip, and then I'd like to play a little bit more with the new air suspension.
And after the workshop looked a little bit more respectable, it seems only fitting to give this final chassis a proper reveal, even though we've already seen it. It's only fair. So introducing the Nova chassis on air. It's crazy to think that only 5 weeks ago, this chassis was toast. After decades of decay, there was barely anything left. But we cut out the rust, welded it up, reinforced it, and now it's got air suspension. It's amazing how far this thing has come in just a few weeks. Along with that, our completely wrecked engine is now a turbocharged race monster. So that is kind of crazy as well. I can't believe how far this build has come, and I'm so excited to finally drive this thing. Hopefully in the near future.
So there we have it. I sit amongst a rather nice selection of Nova parts. I know I just said it, but yeah, I can't quite get my head around it. 4 or 5 weeks ago, this chassis was completely rotten. There was nothing left of it. Now it is solid, it has been additionally reinforced. It has air suspension, and then on the same note, the engine just a month or so ago was completely knackered. There was 3 knackered engines. Now there is 1 turbocharged race engine, and yeah, it's been a busy few weeks, hasn't it? But yeah, this feels like a really big milestone. I know there's so much more work to do, a tremendous amount of work to do, but we have a rolling chassis, we have an engine, and yeah, crikey. When I started this build, there was all of these things that I had no expectations of. There was a lot of me that thought I would sort of patch the Nova up and then just drive it as is. But obviously, then the engine went south and the extent of the rust was pretty appalling. So this is all sort of developed, and it has developed every week from, you know, just repairing the engine to now having a race engine, from just repairing the from just patching the chassis even to completely replacing the floors, the head section, from maybe slightly upgrading the suspension to now having full air suspension all the way around. Yeah, this Nova has had quite a transformation over the last few weeks, and I think eventually it might be one of the coolest Novas out there. I hope. They're all cool in their different ways, but yeah, certainly might be the first air suspension Nova, maybe. We said that earlier. We can't confirm that, but I haven't seen any other ones around. So this has really come a long way in a few weeks. But on that note, what is next? Well, lots of things. So in the next session on the Nova, really it's going to be about marrying the engine to the gearbox. So we'll have a complete rolling chassis and engine. You might notice the turbo setup is off, and that's because we've been addressing the oil filter issue. So in the next episode, you'll see that, and the engine will be fitted, and hopefully we'll be able to get it running. Hopefully. We shall see. then in theory we'll have a running, close to driving chassis, which is really exciting. And then the next thing really is we need to have the body on, and that's for a couple of reasons. The body will give us a slightly more accurate idea on the sort of weight on the suspension, which will allow for more accurate modification on the front and all of that sort of thing. And also from a bodywork point of view, the body is fiberglass, obviously, so once it's on, I sort of don't want to bodywork it before it's on and then put it on and it twists even during lifting and settling on the chassis. I was tapping there, it's much lower than I thought. The body will obviously settle and then cracks will form. So I'd like to get the body on and then do the final body working, priming, once it's sort of rested in its position or bolted on, to avoid any sort of annoying bodywork stuff further down the line. Then once the body's on and primed, it's a million and one things. It's getting the engine properly plumbed in with cooling and wiring and getting the air suspension plumbed in, fitted, wiring, all that sort of thing. Then it's interior, paint, a million things. But in the near future, engine in, get it running, body on, get it primed, everything will be in situ. So yeah, in about a month, I think this will be a single piece again. The chassis, the engine, the body will have been reunited, which is very, very exciting. So a huge amount of fun to come. And as I mentioned throughout this video, the Nova is moving in the next few days, hence the pressure on getting it rolling again. So that is another very exciting update, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you all. But yeah, so much to come. I'm a little bit tired, I must admit. But if you enjoyed this episode, and even if you didn't, please do consider liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, hitting the bell icon, hitting the hype button, all of these things. By doing that, it really does help me make these videos every single week, supports the channel, allows me to continue to mess around with these bizarre cars, and trust me, there is a lot more bizarre cars coming. If you'd like to support the channel further, I've linked my Patreon down below. Over on the Patreon, it's a bunch of behind the scenes access, early access, sort of day-to-day updates on the cars, what's going on that given day, whether it's working on the engine, the chassis, another silly car, another range of silly cars, which you guys will see in the near future. So yeah, lots of fun over on the Patreon. Another great way to support the channel is merchandise, which I've linked down below. Again, any money just goes into these cars and this rather silly passion of fiberglass that I seem to be getting more and more deep into every single day. But I'm quite happy about that. But regardless of all of that, I'm just so grateful that you're here watching. I really do appreciate it. I say it every single week. I can't quite believe how this has all developed over the last couple of months. It really is amazing. And it is all thanks to you guys watching and commenting and sharing the same bizarre love-hate relationship with these old fiberglass cars. It really is wonderful. So thank you so much. And I suppose on that note, take care and I'll see you next week.